Hello and welcome to Jill Cameron Creations. I am super excited to be bringing you products from a brand new company called Maker Forte, and I am on their design team. We're going to be using the stamp set called Christmas Cookie, and I'm going to make a background and Copic color some images for you today to make this adorable holiday card. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp the joy, because there's the letters joy in there, and there's other sentiments that are on this stamp set as well. I'm stamping this with Lawn Fawn Jet Black ink in my Mini Misty on this is 80-pound Neenah Solar White cardstock. I stamped this twice so that I know that I got a really good impression, and also if I wanted to go back and stamp them after I finished coloring, I could do that as well to darken up that black line around the edge. I'm using a stamping pad behind this, and this is nothing more than a mouse pad. If you have a Misty, just take the foam out of the Misty and use it. I find that I get really great impressions with all of my clear stamps if I use a pad behind it, and that's one reason why the Misty, other than the height difference kind of thing, that's one reason why it has the stamping pad in there and not something solid like, you know, a cutting board, or, you know, like a cutting mat kind of thing. It's so that you can get really great impressions with your clear stamps. I'm just randomly stamping all the images from this stamp set around the edges and in the middle of this, and I just created a black and white background. You can go back and add color to it in any way that you want to. If you wanted to go ahead and add Nuvo drops or some different marker colors in the background here, or you could color the entire thing. You could also color just the background itself in between all of the images if you wanted to. Just different options for you to create a simple background. I wanted to keep this black and white because I really wanted to keep the focus on the word joy. And at this point, I hadn't really decided if I was going to utilize the other sentiments that were in the stamp set, or if I was going to just keep it really simple. So I actually stamped one of the other sentiments that's in it, and I decided that I didn't like that, and I'll go with twine, as you saw in the beginning of the video. I kept the coloring of this pretty simple. I wanted the icing to look like icing, like the shiny, pretty icing that you see on a lot of the decorative cookies nowadays. I really wanted to see that and bring that out in these cookies. I used some let's see, this is the E30 line, E33, E35, and E37. I just picked some different spots on the cookies. The edge of the cookie is what I kept dark, and then the rest of it that was around the edge of the icing, I colored in with the 33 and 35 markers. For the icing itself, because when you look at a cookie that's been iced, it has some depth in between the colors. So I put the darkest color on the lines and around the edge, because that made it look like it was actually curved over like that icing is. At the end of it, I also add glossy accents on the top of it, and that's what gives the actual icing look that shine. Absolutely amazing. I'm using RV99 with R29 and R39 for my reds. That RV99, it has that touch of violet in it, which cools down all of the red, but it also adds that real depth in that color. So I really like the RV99 with all of my reds to give it that depth in there. Now I'm just going to go through and color all of this. If you notice, I took the back end cap off of my marker. That is because when I started coloring, I noticed that the tip of my marker had started getting really shiny, and it prevents the bloop. It prevents that disaster from happening where you have to struggle to clean it up or start over because your marker has decided it wants to bloop everywhere. Taking that marker off, if you're paying attention when you're coloring, and you start to see that tip start to get really shiny, it means that it's getting ready to bloop everywhere. Pull that back cap off and it will help to regulate that ink for whatever reason, and it keeps it from blooping. So there's that coloring tip I have for you. The other thing that I have for you for coloring tips for this is to be very light-handed. I have a problem with my grip, and I'm sorry this is fuzzy. My camera decided that it did not want to focus where it needed to focus. It will clear up here in just a second. I tend to grip my markers and my pencils, like when I'm writing, very, very, very hard. And I have to really work. And you've heard me say that before if you've watched any of my Copic coloring. I have to really, really, really work to have a light touch so that my lines can be very thin. The other key to having that really thin line, I have found, is to hold the marker relatively straight up. That way, the only thing that's going to be touching the tip is the tip of that marker onto that paper. And the straighter you can hold that marker, which is really difficult to do when you're doing tutorials and things of coloring, but when you are holding that marker straight up and down, you're more than likely going to be able to have just the tip of that marker right there on the paper. So just some coloring tips there for you. And I'm going to finish up coloring this and just play a little bit of music here, some Christmas music for you. And so you can just watch me finish coloring this up, and then we will move on into finishing up this card. Fussy cutting. Fussy cutting is probably one of my least favorite things to do. It just hurts my hand. But for fussy cutting, you want to cut on the outside edge of that black line. I tend to tilt my scissors a little bit out. The top blade is tilted out just slightly. That way I can actually see the black line. And also you want to hold your scissors as stationary as possible. I do tilt them back and forth, but you want to turn the paper, like for this, you want to turn the paper with your non-dominant hand that's not holding the scissors. You can really see it right here, how my scissors are like the top blade is tilted out, so you can see the actual black line as you're cutting. And the other thing that you'll want to do if you are fussy cutting is you want to cover up that white edge of your images. It makes them look more finished, and it just gives that more finished look. Also, I needed to cut out the inside of this O. So I am using my craft knife. I made a cross from top to bottom and then across the middle, and then I am going down the inside and I'm turning the paper and my knife at the same time. And that's how I cleaned out the inside of the O. Did it with a craft knife. You can do it with a small pair of scissors by doing the exact same thing I did first with my craft knife, and then taking a small pair of scissors and going in there. Use a non-alcohol based marker. Use a water-based marker or a pigment marker for this. If you use an alcohol based marker, it has the potential to bleed into your image and ruin it. So you want to make sure that you're coloring the edge with that black marker to match that black stamped outline to give that more finished look for your stamped images with a water-based marker. I do advise that this is the only thing that marker is used for, because that paper edge is going to cut your marker tip. So I actually have it's an old marker, and as you could probably see there from a minute ago, that it is starting to get a little bit light in the loafers. So I need to actually get another one. It's by Zig, and they still make them. They've made them for years. It is a pigment marker. So it is super, super, super dark black, and it's the only thing that I use that marker for, is to actually edge any fussy cut images that I have. And I absolutely love it. I added some foam dots to the back of my images to pop them up. These are the teeny tiny little pop dots that are from Stampin' Up. However, you can use any kind of foam that you wanted to. These are just really low profile, and I still had them in my stash, and I wanted to go ahead and use them up because they're so tiny. They just worked for this really well. I wanted something that was, like I said, a little bit more low profile than the foam tape that I had. I just wanted this to be slightly raised. So this is a pretty low profile little foam here. Then I went ahead and added some Nuvo glitter gloss pen, or Aqua Shimmer pen. It goes by both names, in the white places on all of my images that I had Copic colored. And even I actually went back and forth on the dots of the center cookie. Was I going to put sequins on them? Did I want to do some sort of gemstone on them? What did I want to do? I ended up just coloring them in and adding glitter gloss over top of them, and then covering it with glossy accents. If you have the Nuvo equivalent of glossy accents, that is like the Nuvo drops stuff, I think it's called glaze. Be careful with how thickly you put it on. Thickly is not a word, but be careful how thick you put it on. And the reason I say that is it can crack. Glossy accents won't crack unless you actually want it to. You can make it crack, but it lasts and it stays and all of that good stuff. I had looked through my stash and I just didn't like anything to fill in for the dots on this in green. So I just went ahead and filled this back in with the matching green marker, and then I'm going to do the glitter gloss over it and add in my glossy accents over top of this. Absolutely gorgeous. I did let this dry overnight before I finished the card. And the reason for that is I wanted to make sure that the glossy accents was dry all the way through and not just on that top layer when I started messing with it. To finish this card, I decided that I wanted to add some just really simple twine to it. It is just thin twine, and I wrapped it around the card a couple of times, and then you can see how beautiful that is. Oh, after it dried, absolutely gorgeous. So I'm going to wrap this around the card a couple times, and I'm going to go ahead and tape it onto the back, and so that it looks a little bit thicker and heavier than what it is. And this is actually, I'm going to fake it. because I want it to look like it's that I tied a bow around it and that kind of thing, and I'm really not. I'm actually gonna tie the I'm gonna make a bow separate, and then I'm gonna tie it into place right here and glue it, and yeah, it's just a whole lot easier to do it this way than it is to actually tie the bow, because I'm not good at tying bows. So I did fluff this out a little bit, and it's just some jute. It's really thin jute, and I'm going to tie this, actually tie the jute together right here and glue it down so that it looks like I tied the bow on the card instead of it being flat there. So I tied the bow onto the card, and then I'm going to glue it down so it holds it in place. And just fluff it out a little bit, and that's it. Very simple card. Stamped background, Copic colored, pop up some images, and then I'm going to use foam tape on the back of the panel here and glue it down and adhere that down to a top folding note card. Very, very simple. And don't forget to check out the top folding note cards that are over at Maker Forte as well. There are several basic crafting items over there that are just super awesome, so I have a link to all of that below in the description. Thank you so much for joining me today. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any videos from me in the future. And y'all have an amazing day.